Welcome to the Chosson and Kallah Shmooze you wish you had but never got, part 1. So today we're going to talk about the general idea of husband and wife and marriage and sexual union according to what I hope to be the most authentic Torah view. Now, the interesting thing about Torah views is there really one authentic view? We are taught that there are 70 different pshatim in any particular verse. There's a ritva that talks about it, I think, in Eruvin on Daf Yud Gimel. It talks about that there's 49 ways for something to be permitted and 49 ways for something to be forbidden. So when we say the word authentic Torah view, I don't know if anybody could say that. However, there's a difference between, as I said yesterday, between Torah, which means teaching, and halacha, means what we do. Now, there is a concept that we do certain things. There's normative practice within Judaism, which is a little bit different than belief or ideas. So the Torah can be looked at as a system of concepts and ethics and beliefs and ways in which to elevate the human soul and get close to Hashem. And then there is the law. Just like regular secular law in many respects, the law has to be obeyed no matter what the spirit is behind it and what the rationales are behind it. The law is the law. The halacha is closer to the law. The halacha is what we are supposed to do. That's why the word halacha means to go. We have to go in that direction. But I will try to speak about, not that a video alone is sufficient for giving over halacha, but to talk about the way in which Jews would accustom themselves and should accustom themselves, because the halacha is based on what works. It's based on what will help people grow and what's practical. That's why in one situation, the very same thing may be permitted, and in another situation, the very same thing is forbidden. If one is... their life is in danger, they can eat a ham sandwich with cheese on Yom Kippur. Not only can they should. So the idea in halacha also is that it's also about the way in which it works for a person. It's not about the concept. The pig is treif. The pig is treif. That's the concept. The law is about the execution. And in that vein, I encourage everybody, again, to please listen to these discussions in order, because one idea is going to build on the next. And toward the end, when we get into the deeper aspects of sexuality and modesty and abstention and pleasure and all these factors, sexual dysfunction, and I'm going to go very specific and very graphic, but toward the end, I want there to be a buildup of ideas and an understanding of the Torah view, as it were. So let's talk about this. First of all, it's important to understand that sexuality in Judaism, the normative view, is that it is holy and that it is deeply spiritual. And this is not a side point, something that's said to make people feel good. It's one of the deepest truths. The Zohar is filled with erotic imagery and symbolism. The Zohar describes Moshe in volume 1, page Kuf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph, describes Moshe Ish Elohim. The pasuk says Moshe is the man of God, but the word Ish is a funny word. Ish really can also mean husband. The Zohar says Moshe was a husband of God, as it were, a husband of the Shekhinah. And just as a husband can break his wife's vows and annul her vows, so too Hashem had the power to annul God's decrees. Anyway, the point is, there is a husband and wife connection. The Gemara in Yuma is a remarkable Gemara on Daf Nun Daled. On Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph, the Gemara in Yuma says that in the time of the regel, in the time of the festivals, when many Jews would come up and make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, they would roll back the entrance to the Beis Hamikdash and roll back the entrance to the Holy of Holies. So, right, the Beis Hamikdash was divided into a number of sections. But the sanctuary, the main part of the temple, also known as the Heichal, the sanctuary, that was where the menorah was, that was where the gold altar was, that was where the shulchan was, and then there was the Holy of Holies. Deeper inside, a place that very few people could ever go, only the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, and we're taught in the Talmud that it was a risky venture. If the Kohen didn't have the proper intentions and the proper state of mind, his life would be in danger. But inside this Holy of Holies was the Ark of the Covenant, the Aron, and on top of the Aron was, oddly enough, two cherubic angels that were in some kind of embrace. Now, the Gemara says that they would roll back all the openings so people could see in. It's like pulling back a veil. People would be able to see in, and they would see the kruvim, these cherubs, who were basically human forms, oddly, because it's anathema to the Torah, any graven images. But here in the Holy of Holies, we have a graven image, which is a whole nother story, something to talk about, how the Torah is filled with polar opposites. There's a fancy word for it. It's called anantriodromias. There are complete opposites. So all graven images are forbidden, and yet in the Holy of Holies, there's a graven image of two human forms, and they're embracing each other. And the Gemara says that the people would say, or the priest or whoever would say, look at the love that Hashem has for you, like the love of a man to a woman. Rashi says over there that they literally were embraced and connected to each other. It's pretty clear. I can't tell you 100%, but it's pretty clear that it implies a sexual embrace. And I will submit to you proof of that is why in the world would we have to depict a man and a woman, a male and female figure? Why not, let's say the Christian image of the mother and the child, the Madonna figure? We don't do that. We don't do that at all. We're talking about a man and a woman because it is not motherly love. It is something better and deeper. It is sexual love, sexual union and connection. And this is not an accident. Rabbeinu Bechaya makes the same point in Shmooze 25, verse 18. He also points out that it's the love of a man to a woman, not the love of a mother to a child. What are we talking about over here? What are we saying? We're saying that deep within creation. Now, this is an important point that people should reflect on much more deeply, which is that it's not an accident that man was created in God's image, however you want to understand it being in God's image. It's not something that just happens. It's that because God is the prime source of everything, and we are all emanated from his will, therefore we can't help but be patterned after him. We cannot help but be a reflection of some deeper truths. In other words, if a square is a square and a triangle is a triangle, it's not just that God one day woke up and said, I will create the laws of thermodynamics, or I will create this idea that there's 180 degrees in a triangle. No, that can't be, because God is about truth. It means that there's some essential, deep truth within that concept that, like ripples in a pond, if you throw a rock into a pond, you have these concentric ripples rippling out. Think of those ripples as like the sephirot, whatever those mean, that somehow or another, the effect, it takes on the shape, watered down, literally watered down, of the original rock. It is an emanation. So if there's a concept even that a triangle is 180 degrees, or there's a concept of sexual love, or even motherly love, which is a different conversation. But all those things that exist are a reflection of some much deeper godly truth that are manifested in this world in this form. But deep down, they're about some very deep truth. So God is not just loving, which is a powerful point itself, and so love in this world and motherly love represents some deep God truth. But the sexual union, the wish for two entities who are in some ways extremely opposite of each other. Anybody who's gotten into a fight with their spouse knows how frustrating it is when you love somebody to also feel disconnected, and how painful and angry that is. That is a force of the universe. That is a representation of God's deepest wish, if he can have a wish, as it were, to attach and join with everything, and everything's wish to attach and join with God, and yet the impossibility of it because we're different, right? God is not physical, we are physical. Man and woman are so different, sometimes it's maddening, and yet in a moment of passion, their love transcends everything, and they join. You know, as it says in Bereshis, there'll be one flesh. So this idea being represented in the love between man and woman, and yes, the passion and the intensity and the sexual longing and the wish to be connected, even though you never can fully connect, but through emotions and through passion, there's a moment where the emotions transcend physicality, and you have that connection. That is the deepest truth of the universe. This is why Hashem created us, to be attached to him, and this is also the paradox. And that's that polarity again that I mentioned, the enantiodromia, the fact that we can't ever be fully attached. And this point of tension is one of the fundamental truths of Judaism, one of the fundamental truths of life. We must not only get frustrated with the efforts to get connected to the people that we love, we must also embrace the frustration. Because just like God longs to be attached to us, and all of creation longs to be attached to God, this deep feeling and wish, we enact it through our encounter with our spouse. We enact that wish and that struggle. And as hard as it is, it also gets overcome through passion. And so that is why it's such a great mitzvah. And is it an accident? Is it an accident, I ask you, a God who creates everything? Is it an accident that through this incredible passion, life itself was created? Because that's exactly what happened. One day, so to speak, even though time didn't exist, one day, God made the whole universe. He created everything through this passion. Of course, it's a godly version of passion. And so many, many earlier ripples up in the pond, something we can't comprehend. But in his passion, he created us. And we enact that same thing ritually, theomorphically. We magically enact that ritual ourselves. And we get close to God by getting close to our spouse, by experiencing the passion and love. And lo and behold, sometimes we actually create life itself. And even when we don't create life itself, even when it's through the act of passion in Judaism, even long after you're no longer fertile, long after you may have had many children and fulfilled the mitzvah of being fruitful and multiply, a pregnant woman, all those things, who can't get more children, according to the Torah, according to the Talmud, it's a mitzvah to still engage in sexuality. Now, what do the rabbis say? The rabbis say it in a very short and coded form. They say that when you create that passion between husband and wife, even if you're not creating a child, you're creating ruchos, you're creating spirits. Because they can't give you a whole psychology lesson and deep understandings in 5 seconds. But one thing they must be meaning too is you're creating a spirit between the two of you. When you create that passion, when you create that connection, you are joined up together. And that creates the context of your love. That creates the context of your life. That creates the context of your family. What do the rabbis teach? What are the toldoseim shel tzadikim? That's the beginning of Eila Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram, Avram Holidas Yitzchak, whatever it says over there, something like that. It says Todoseim shel tzadikim ma'asim tovim. The procreation, the creativity of tzaddikim are good deeds itself. What does that mean? We're saying that we create. Man always creates, just like God always creates. And through the love and through the passion of a husband and wife, which creates a family, which creates a context, which creates a momentum of growth, we create.